Well, I tell everyone everything, so I don't hold anything, and I'm like, this is what's going on. No one will ever say Dave lied to us or anything like that. So maybe I don't share my information, according to my wife. But no, you know what it is? I feel that because I'm a public image, I have a public persona. I feel like I'd rather tell people what's going on ahead of time. So this way, if something bad happens, they'll be like, well, we knew he was going in. We were praying for him and he didn't make it. Or they're going to be like, oh yeah, we know what was going on. And thank God, he did well.
How you doing, everybody? This is Jimmy the Bull at MuscleMaster.com. I'm here today to share with you my personal power straps, how to help you become the best power bodybuilder I can possibly be. Training through injuries, gaining strength, and now I'm going to share with you how you can get the extra mile in the gym, pushing and pulling and getting through the exercises. These are the best power straps you'll ever use. Go to MuscleMaster.com to get the full demonstration.
Welcome back to another episode of Iron Therapy. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by our RXMuscle staff psychotherapist, Lesley Timbol. And Lesley, this is going to be the Dave Palumbo therapy show, I think.
Yeah, it sounds like it by the topic, yes.
Facing death sounds like a pretty, extreme topic, but, we all at some point will face it, whether whether it's the final frontier or not for us. Hopefully, sometimes you're just gonna. I've seen people get into accidents where they probably have faced death. Car accidents that were really vicious. I've seen people have to undergo, cancer therapy. I mean, Chris Aceto, had melanoma. He faced his own mortality many times. Doing interferon treatment for a year straight. He didn't know if he was going to make it, and so I guess at some point in our life, we're all going to face that fact. And, I don't know if I'm facing death here, but it's certainly, scary in one sense that, I have to have the first like real major surgery, I would say, of my life. I've had a lot of little surgeries and maybe not little surgeries, but I've had a lot of surgeries. They say that anytime you're put under anesthesia, you could die. Obviously, there's always that risk, but more than likely, if you're getting a joint repair done and you're healthy, you're probably not going to die, and so it's a little unnerving to know that they got to stop your heart, to do some sort of a procedure on you. When we all think of the heart, functioning as what defines life, right?
For sure.
I've thought about this for a second. In the procedure, for those of you who don't know what's going on, I've talked about it, but not everyone watches every show. I'm getting my aorta repaired, which is the main artery that comes off of your left ventricle, your heart, and provides your body with blood. Mine has gotten too big for whatever reason, whether it be bad luck. I have a connective tissue disorder. I don't know yet. I'm getting tested for that. I think that's the case. But whatever the case may be, my aorta just recently in the last 3 years has gotten bigger. And that's dangerous, obviously, because if it ruptures or splits, dissects, as they say, the blood starts coming out and you basically die pretty quickly. So that's not something you want to have happen to you. And Boston Lloyd, that's how he passed. And that's how Chris Dim almost passed as well. So that's something that you, obviously, if you're aware of, you want to get fixed. So I need to get this thing fixed because mine is too big at this point and the doctor doesn't feel comfortable where it's at. And I have the surgery scheduled. I'll schedule tomorrow, but it's going to probably be second week in March. Now, when people come to you, Lesley, as a therapist and are facing their own mortality, whether it be because they have terminal cancer or they have, they're facing maybe they have kidney failure or whatever the case may be, when people feel like they may not live another day. How do you, walk someone through the fear of that? Because we're at the end of the day, we're all afraid of dying. Isn't that really what everyone's fear is? No one may admit that, but let's face it, most of the the fear we have in life is that something is going to kill us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do? How do you deal with that? Are there any techniques?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things, and this is in no particular order, Dave. I mean, one is to actually feel your feelings, because sometimes people will go in a state of, let's pretend this isn't happening. And so I call putting the ostrich, their head in the sand, trying to avoid the inevitable. And whether you recognize, and I'm not saying this is necessarily your case, but I'm just talking about the broad span of things. Whether you acknowledge something is happening or not, you still have feelings. And if you deny your feelings, you can actually impair your recovery, because you're not going to be mentally as prepared. Right. And it's okay to go through your gamut of feelings. It's going to be a roller coaster. So it's allowing yourself to feel, because sometimes people bury things because they don't want to deal with it. It's not pleasant by any stretch, but it's important to be able to try to process those feelings. It's also trying to be, and I hate to say this word because it sounds so horrible, but patient. I mean, patience not my virtue either. But sometimes within the process of going through this, it helps us actually kind of realign our priorities. So what we think is really important in our lives, it could be, whether it's that, whether it's material things or whatever it is, we have almost a reevaluation of what is truly important. Because when we grow up, a lot of times, I don't know if your grandparents ever did this to you, Dave, but to say, appreciate your health. And when you're a kid, you think you have like forever.
Of course.
So, I mean, go ahead.
No. That's good. Keep going.
So, I mean, it's, part of that is, there are certain things you can't control. And it's, again, going what you can control. So let's say if you can do some type of movement, maybe not the full about exercise, maybe that you're used to doing, especially if you're an athlete. But there are going to be some things you can do physically, and there's going to be your diet. You can control your diet. You can try to work on your sleep habits as far as trying to get enough healthy sleep. And I'm not just saying being in bed for a certain number of hours, but quality sleep. And part of that could be working on a good, routine during your daytime that's not overly strenuous, but having a solid bedtime routine that properly gets you in that mental space to, fall asleep. I know a lot of my clients who are saying, hey, we watch TV before we go to sleep, but they're watching the news. That's for sure, because that gets carried on, and then they're thinking about the news. And as we all know, the news is not exactly positive. In fact, it's like 99%. I don't know if that might be too high, but it is mostly, if not all, negative.
Yeah.
So the last thing you want is that negativity in your mindset. So it's important to pursue, activities that you can do. Obviously, relationships, whether it be, for you, Dave, your wife and kids, friendships, all that kind of stuff. That's important. And if you need to reach out for some healthy supports, because you have like for you, Dave, you're surrounded by millions of people, right? So it feels like that way.
Yeah, I know.
You might actually, and this could be targeted to you. I know you don't like to burden people. That's the last thing on your mind. So sometimes when people, go through something, they know everyone's going through something. It might be something different, but they don't want to burden other people with their problems. Sure. And I'm not saying you have to tell everybody. You can tell a select group that you can trust, that you feel more comfortable with. Yeah. When you do open up or allow them into your life as far as expressing your thoughts and your feelings, they're actually, that makes them feel good that they're actually doing something, even if it's just listening.
Right. Well, I tell everyone everything, so I don't hold anything, and I'm like, this is what's going on. No one will ever say Dave lied to us or anything like that. So maybe I don't share my information, according to my wife. But no, you know what it is? I feel that because I'm a public image, I have a public persona. I feel like I'd rather tell people what's going on ahead of time. So this way, if something bad happens, they'll be like, well, we knew he was going in. We were praying for him, and he didn't make it. Or they're going to be like, oh yeah, we know what was going on, and thank God, he did well. The funny thing is that when I put up videos on like what I'm actually doing, sometimes people don't watch them and they just read the headline and they don't even know what's going on. So I got people already telling me, how'd the surgery go? They don't even know that I even, that I haven't had the surgery yet. But and that's great. It's it's wonderful to see all these people who who have reached out to me and have given me support, and people who've gone through the exact same thing. I can't even believe how many people have gone through the same thing, which makes you feel better a lot of times. At least you feel like, well, maybe I'm not the only one that this has happened to, and it's something that does happen more frequently than you think. And then a lot I've had a lot of aortic valve replacement people contact me, and probably as many people that contacted me, they've had different procedures done. Like some have had artificial valves put in, some have had tissue valves put in. I found out, and I'm going to go to the doctor tomorrow, they might not even need to change my valve and I thought this cardiac cath they did on me in the hospital, which is a procedure, but you're put under. It's like they treat it like a surgery. I was in the hospital all day from it, and they run a camera up your artery. That's why I have this thing on my hand. They don't want me moving my hand around, which is very hard when you're right-handed. But and I said, why can't you do it on the left hand? Well, I guess the left artery makes a weird turn into your heart, so they got to do it on the right artery, and so they run it up through your heart. And it used to be through the groin, which is a pain in the ass because you got to lay in bed for like 6 hours. You can't move. This is a little better, I guess, because I can move around. But so they ran this up and they looked at my heart. They shot some dye in, and actually I found out that I did have a very small soft plaque in my in one of my coronary arteries. Very, very minuscule. It was not calcified yet, and that's why it didn't come up on a calcium score scan. Nothing that anyone has to do anything about. I have low cholesterol. I have low LDL, but who knows why it's there? It is what it is. But that wasn't the thing that was the best thing. The best part of it was that when they looked at my aorta and my aortic valve, and they looked at and they compared the cardiac catheterization to my echocardiogram and my CT scan, they realized that a couple of the surgeons who had seen it said that, I don't think you need a valve. I don't think they need to change your aortic valve, which was kind of like that's kind of cool that I found that out. Maybe it was good that I did this test. Obviously I'm following directions. Like if they tell me to get a test, I got a test done. But so I always tell people, last night I was thinking, I got home and I was like, couldn't move my hand. And I was like, I wasn't really tired. Maybe I was just mentally fatigued. And my ankle was killing me yesterday. I don't know why. The last 2 days have been hurting, my fused ankle. So I'm like, you know what? Tomorrow might be the best day of my life. So why be depressed about it now? I'm going to sleep. Some people say I'm going to kill myself tonight because I'm having such a bad day. I always say tomorrow might be the best day of my life. So I'm going to wake up in the morning and hopefully it's going to be the best day. And you know what? It was better. Everything felt better this morning. So after a good night's sleep, and I tell people that all the time. Don't get depressed about what's going on in your life right now just because you feel like you're at an all-time low. Tomorrow could be the best day. You could a million great things, and I had a lot of opportunities presented themselves to me that I'm not going to talk about yet, but a lot of good things in the future. So, how do you face death? Well, you know what? The worst thing that can happen is you're going to die, right? What else? And you have no control over
it. You can't change it. Yeah,
you can't change it. So I am going into the surgery with at least a mindset that I have to do this. I want to do it because I want to fix the problem. So I never have to worry about it again. And I can go to the gym and I can train and I don't have to, worry every time I get a little indigestion in my chest. I'm not thinking I'm having I'm not having an aortic dissection. And, I'll deal with it. The worst part is the build up to it, leading up to the actual surgery itself. The day you go there and you're in the hospital. And look, I've done this a lot of times in the last couple of years, gotten little surgeries, and I know the whole procedure already. I know how to, they want you to take this off and put the gown on. And I know the whole thing, the verset in the operating room and all the rules they give you. And you know what? It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. It's still unnerving. But don't be scared because you know what the truth is? Once they put you out, you're out. You're not going to feel anything. It's not like you're going to be in pain, for the procedure. Now, when I wake up, I'm sure it's not going to be a bed of roses. But, I think how we handle the disappointments or the things that go wrong in our life or what we perceive as going wrong is really what defines our character, right? I mean, I used to say this about bodybuilding, how you handle a loss in bodybuilding says a lot about, who you are as a character. And I've seen some champions take some losses right on the chin and really handle it well and come back and redeem it. Look at Ramy. I mean, Ramy's coming off an Olympia loss, he's coming back to the Arnold, with a good mindset. Everyone loves a good comeback. So, even if you have a bad health issue, you got to challenge it head on. Tanya Knight, may she rest in peace. She had cancer. She just died recently, and she fought it, tooth and nail from the beginning. She got it. Unfortunately, she lost the battle, and hopefully, in the last, weeks or months or year or two of her life, I was trying to be there for her, and I know a lot of her other friends were there for her, and hopefully that meant a lot. And She's watching over us now, and she's in a better place. But it was her time, and that's it. I don't believe this is my time, and so I'm trying to stay positive about it. But I understand, because people reach out to me all the time, the fear involved in having to be diagnosed with something that's a terrible diagnosis, or you're going to have to go through a surgery you just don't want to deal with. I have a lot of bodybuilders who deal with spinal injuries and stuff like that, or having to fuse discs, and it's scary. You don't want to be paralyzed. You don't want to have major damage, permanent damage. I can tell people how to stay in a positive mindset, but I want to get your feedback on what they can do in terms of techniques about how to handle the stress and diffuse it without having to do drugs and other stuff like that.
Right. Well, again, it's going back to what they can do. I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what you said before, when you talk to other people who've gone through similar situations, just having that emotional support, being able to talk about it with people who are going through it, who get it. Because one, you get that feedback of they are experiencing similar things to you because of your situation, but also they might have some techniques that they can share with you too. So it's always nice to have some type of support group that you can go to or be able to dialogue with. But as far as, also when you talk with other people, keep in mind other people, when they talk with you, mean the best, because for the most part, they want to be able to help. And this may not apply for you, Dave, but I'm just talking to the broad group of people, is that it's okay to set boundaries with them. So there's going to be times where you may not want to talk about it. It's not that you're ignoring it. It's just that you can only talk about it so much, because it can be very draining having to focus on it day in and day out, and you don't have to, you have to live through it. You don't have to talk about it. It's okay to tell people, you know what, if you don't mind, if I can just stop you right there, I'm just not really feeling it, but I'd really like to hear more about you. What's going on with you? So kind of redirect it back to them. Because sometimes, going through stuff like this to help manage it is sometimes thinking outside of you. Right. Talk about someone else's life, what their challenges are. So that can be also a stress management technique. It's not to say that you shouldn't be focusing on you, but it's actually helps to help other people, even if it's just listening to their problems. Yeah. And it's like I said, it's a good distraction. And like I was saying, relaxation techniques, well, it could be like progressive muscle relaxation. It could be, mindfulness training. It could be, like I said, those bedtime routines. It could be learning something new. Let's say it's a hobby that you either haven't picked up in a long time. Maybe you want to learn something, whether it be a new language, maybe not a new sport, but, something new that something that won't require that kind of physicality, especially in that kind of situation. Right. It could be spending time in nature. If you're not up for a hike, it might be just taking a walk outside, getting that fresh air. Yeah. If you're able to take your dog for a walk, if you have a dog, that kind of stuff, that fresh air is really important. Again, it's focusing on what you can do. You can actually even do a memoir. So here you go, Dave. You've got your, your app, but I mean, what about doing a memoir of your journey? Right. And I'm not saying you're doing this to make money. I mean, it's good for you to see your journey, and maybe other people would benefit from that.
Yeah. No, well, I will obviously document everything I'm doing, and I'll do videos about it, because I know that there are other people that have to go through a similar procedure, even if they don't have the exact same thing I do.
Right.
And I mean, that's what my life pretty much has become, educating people on how to be healthy, how to put muscle on, how to burn fat, how to, take the right supplements, how to deal with things that pop up in life through my own experiences. Because that's all I can really help people with, is through my own experiences. The reason I'm good at it is because I was a bodybuilder at a very high level. I had a lot of muscle. I had a very low body fat. So I kind of know how to do that. So if I've done it, I can explain it to you, and I can tell you about how it feels. There's nothing worse than having a trainer. And that doesn't say there aren't great trainers that weren't top bodybuilders, but if you're a person who's never really gone through the process and you're educating people on it, sometimes it doesn't seem as authentic, Mm-hmm. And so in that sense, and what I also have found that has worked well for me, and I don't know if this is torturing me more or if it's actually preparing me, but how when you go to the gym, before you go to the gym, a lot of times you focus on what the workout's going to be. Like, all right, I'm doing legs today. When I go to the gym, I used to think about, all right, I'm going to squat. This is how much weight I'm going to do. I'm going to do this many sets. I'm going to do leg press after that. Then I'm going to go to leg extensions and leg curls, and I'm going to do this many sets. And this is what I want to get weight wise. And I almost visualized the whole workout. Dorian used to tell me, he used to say that also. He visualized the whole workout before he went and did it. Well, I do that with surgeries. I go through the whole process in my mind of what I'm going to be doing, of going in there and I'm in the prep room and what they're going to do to prep me. And I, unfortunately, I've had a lot of experience with doing this. Not to mention, I also worked in a hospital, when I was in medical school. So I kind of know the process. But when you walk through the whole process in your head a million times over, when you get there, it feels familiar. And I know it sounds weird and it might sound like, well, you're going to drive yourself crazy, but not really, because when something feels familiar, it's not as scary.
It depends on the person though, Dave. I mean, that works for you. I have some clients that they what we call catastrophize. So, I mean, they go through the process and then they add the worst case scenario to it. And that's the problem. And then they end up focusing on the worst case scenario. But I appreciate your point, saying if it becomes more familiar, you know what to expect, it's less scary. So I understand that.
I stopped the visualization process at the moment they put me out, though. I don't go beyond that. I don't go into the surgery, and I don't go into the recovery, because I don't know what quite frankly, if I haven't gone through it, I don't know what it's going to be. So I can't even play that out in my mind. Now, obviously, when I had my left shoulder done, replaced, and then I went to the right one, I knew what the process was. So that was, to me, I was not even the slight bit hesitant about getting the second one done, because I kind of knew the whole process already. It was all right, great. When I had my ankle fused, it was the second surgery. Same thing with my quad. When I had my second and third quad surgery, I kind of knew the process already. I wasn't thrilled with the idea of having to get it done again, but I kind of knew the process. It wasn't going to be worse, than it was the last time. It was just going to be pretty much the same. And so I don't really know what the outcome, they usually prepare you for the worst case scenario, believe it or not. So when you wake up or you have to deal with recovery, a lot of times what they're telling you is going to be the worst case scenario, and assuming nothing goes terribly wrong during surgery. But it's a hard concept, for anyone who has to get an open heart type surgery, where they have to turn your pump off. Let's face it, that's the motor. The heart is the motor of the body. When they have to turn that off, and they have to put your brain on a machine that will, perfuse it with blood so that your brain doesn't die, right? And the rest of your body has to be put on a slab of ice, essentially, to keep it cold so that it doesn't go bad. That is a very unnerving process, because what you're doing is you're handing over control of your life, essentially, to this team of doctors, right? You're basically saying, I trust you with my life. Not only do I trust you, you're going to put me to death and then bring me back to life again.
Right.
And that, I think, is the thing that whacks. Some people don't even think about it, and they don't even realize it. I know too well what's going on. And it's amazing that we're able to do that we have the technology to be able to preserve a body by cooling it down, and where it doesn't need any blood flow for 3-4 hours, And they used to, before they had the heart lung machine, they used to do that with the brain too. They'd cool the whole body down. The brain wouldn't even have blood flow to it. And people would come out of the surgery fine. It's a miracle almost. And which leads me to believe that I can't believe that we haven't figured out how to suspend people, and suspended animation, where you see these science fiction movies where people go into like these tubes,
right?
And they wake up 1,000 years later, because something went wrong. Yeah. I can't believe we don't have that technology yet, because obviously the body can be preserved, pretty well at cold temperatures. And it doesn't seem to break down at all. So to me, science is miraculous. But at the same time that I know we have it kind of down to a science on how to do this thing, it's still unnerving to hand over, because in essence, I put the title of this show as, Facing Death, because not that I'm going to die permanently, I'm going to die and not be here anymore, but in a sense, your body is going to be dead temporarily, while they're working on it. And then they're going to bring me back and start my heart up again. And so that is unnerving for anyone to go through, and especially, someone who's who doesn't want. There are certain people who don't even care if they die or not, but I'm not in that category. I have I have family, I have kids, I have a lot still to do in bodybuilding and all the other little hobbies that I have. So I'm not ready to go yet, but this has to be the greatest challenge that I've faced, more so than any contest prep, going to federal prison, or any of the other crazy things that have gone on in my life. This is the most I guess you could say, serious in my mind, because number one, I don't have any control over it, right? Because I'm not in control. Number two, because there is an element of danger here, because, you know, anything can go wrong, you know, when they're playing around with the, you know, stopping your heart. And so you have to really be willing. And this, you know, some people can't handle it themselves. They might have to reach out to someone like you.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to completely let go and say, okay, I've surrendered. Whatever happens, happens. And that is a huge leap for a lot of people to make. And it's a scary leap for a lot of people to make. And I'm not pretending to be Mr., you know, the bravest guy in the world. Obviously, I'm nervous about it. But at the same time, I understand the process and I feel comfortable with it. But it's something that's probably, like I said, one of the hardest things for people to face is their own mortality.
Well, it's accepting that uncertainty, like you were saying, Dave, because it's going to happen. We don't have control over it.
Right.
So, you know, is what you're going through a walk in the park? No. But then also think of the alternative. What's the alternative if you don't do this? You know, at least you have some control of saying, okay, right now I got a choice. Yep. If I wait too long, I'm not going to have that choice. Mm-hmm. So it's not that either one is pleasant, but one is, I call it the lesser of two evils. So
good point you made. And that point is what I really want to drive home to people. Do what you can to control as much as you can in your life. We don't have control of everything. Okay. Mm-hmm. We probably have control of very little, to be honest with you. You know, we can kind of guide our lives by our thoughts, but let's face it, at the end of the day, you know, anything, you can walk out in front of your house and get hit by a car. You know, it happens all the time. So, but if you have information at your disposal, data, meaning that you've gone for health tests, whether it be blood work, echocardiograms, cardiac CT scans, colonoscopies, thyroid scans, whatever the case may be, okay? If you keep checking your blood pressure, if you're taking tabs on all the data that you do have at your disposal, and as we get, you know, as technology progresses, we have more and more available. I have this Apple Watch on. I can tell my oxygen saturation. I can tell my heart rate on there. I can probably take my blood pressure to some degree on this thing. Pretty soon it'll do your blood sugar. So, I mean, the more data we have at our disposal, the better decision makers we can become.
Yeah. And
don't be afraid you're going to find out something that you don't want to know, because if you do find out something you don't want to know, like I didn't want to know I had an enlarged aorta, but once I knew it, now I realized I got to keep track of it. And I got to make sure that I do the responsible thing. And when it's time to fix it, and I knew this day was coming eventually, you fix it. Arnold had to change, I think, his aortic valve was bad in his heart. I don't think his aorta was anything wrong. He had an aortic valve, and he knew it had to be fixed. And I remember when he had it fixed, and he said, "Yeah, it was. I knew it was coming. It was the doctor said now is the time." And I think he had the valve that was replaced again. So because they don't last forever, you know. And you think Arnold wanted to go do it? No, of course not. You think he wanted to go into open heart surgery? Of course not. I wish I could interview him about the whole process. Mm-hmm. You know, because I never really heard him talk too much in depth about what he went through mentally, because, you know, he has a lot to still do too. He didn't want to have to undergo open heart surgery, certainly not twice. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he dealt with it, and because he wanted to live, he didn't want to die, and he wasn't going to just ignore it. So we all are faced at one point or another with making a tough decision, but at least let the decision be yours and not something that you're reacting to after the fact. Like I remember Chris Dim, what a wonderful individual. You know, I've interviewed him multiple times on the show. He had an aortic dissection happen in the gym. He didn't even know he had an aorta that was damaged. Somehow, by the grace of God, he survived. They got him to the hospital. They fixed the thing, and he actually competed after that and made it back to the Olympia stage. He then found out several years later that he had another aortic aneurysm in his abdominal area, which is not such a bad surgery usually. They don't have to open your chest for that. They go through your abdomen for that. And they try to fix it with like a stent, and it didn't work. They had to go in the second time. And the second time they went in, which should have been a routine fix, somehow his spinal column got compromised, and he lost the use of his legs. Mm-hmm. And who the heck wants to go through that, right? Mm-hmm. This guy is so brave. He went right back to the gym. He trains people every single day. You know, he doesn't make excuses. He actually did the wheelchair nationals a couple of years back and did very well. He has a great mindset, and he's told me, he said, I'm going to walk again. He's convinced, and that's, what his whole life has been dedicated to now. But, had he known ahead of time, he certainly would have gotten it fixed, and so that's why I tell people, with the technology we have today, there's no reason to ever not be aware of what's going on inside your body. Don't put off what you're afraid to find out, and then you can't make your own decisions. You have to react to whatever negative stuff happens. If Boston Lloyd would have gotten his, the proper test and would have gone and followed up with the doctor, I think the doctor dropped the ball on it, because from what I understand from his dad, he did know he had an enlarged aorta. They found that on his pre-surgical. He was trying to get pre-certified to get a kidney transplant. We knew they had kidney issues, and they did whatever test is necessary to do that. And they found out, and on the test results, he did have an enlarged, a substantially enlarged aorta, and no one ever told him that there was anything wrong. The doctor never sent him for follow-up, so he never even knew. And had the doctor done his job, I mean, Boston would be here today, So you got to take this, same thing with my thyroid. When my thyroid scan came back, I mean, when they found out that I had a little nodule on my thyroid, the doctor kind of was playing it off like, it's not a big deal. Everyone's got them. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Send me for an ultrasound of my thyroid. And thank God I did, because I found out it turned out to be cancer. It was a little cancerous nodule that was taken out, and hopefully everything's good now. That was a couple of years ago, but you have to be proactive, even though, and the reason I keep saying this over and over again is because I know the mindset. You don't want to know. I don't want to know all these things are wrong with me. Enough is enough. But you know what? If you know about it, you can react to it. Yeah, you think I wanted to go through 5 surgeries in the last 3, 4, 5 years? Of course not. You think I want to get my thyroid taken out? I want to get my ankle fused? I wanted to get my shoulders replaced? No. But what's the alternative? Walk around in chronic pain from my shoulders, limping around because of my ankle, and then dying of an aortic dissection. It is what it is. That's the cards I was dealt. But I chose to be proactive and find a way to fix the problem so that I can hang around for a little longer and annoy you guys for many more years.
What would the trolls do without you, Dave? I don't know.
Yeah. Even the people that get annoyed by me have been reaching out to me and saying that get better. We're praying for you, wishing you good luck.
That's nice.
At the end of the day, we could break each other's balls in this industry, and I don't think there was a single person, maybe one person, but I don't think other than a single person that I wouldn't, go show up at the hospital for them and pray for them, because whether we break each other's balls online on social media or not, it doesn't mean none of us want to see anything bad happen. We're all in this together. We're all Iron brothers and sisters. There's no one who wishes any bad. I would never wish any ill will on anyone out there, even though I might argue with them, about stupid things like, bodybuilding, placings and nutrition. I wouldn't wish any bad luck on or any ill will on anyone. And anyone who reached out, and look, I've had people reach out to me that I really wasn't that close to, and they had medical issues, and I helped them get through it by giving them some protocols and referring to some doctors, and that's what we're all about, and that's what's also good about being a public persona like myself, who actually is open about what's going on, because I have a lot of people contact me with, oh, you're looking for someone to do this? Oh, you will. And I get a lot of referrals. So if I ever need it, if I need anything done at all in this world, whether it be fixing a doorknob or breaking into a safe, all I got to do is mention it on my TV show, and someone contacts me saying, I'm an expert in that, or I'll tell you how to do that, or I know someone who's an expert in that. So it's all good.
That is great. Yeah.
Yeah. But, it's tough, Lesley, and as a therapist, I'm sure it's hard for you too. Sometimes you get people that are just stuck in such a negative place. Mm-hmm. And it's, hard to get them out of that place. And
it is. I usually wear them down to something positive, though. And I bring out, so here's the other thing. Another coping mechanism is humor. It's learning what works for that person. Yeah. And it's about digging and finding out what can work, because even though they're going through problems, people do miss that opportunity to feel better. And there's something, if you find the right way of doing it, humor is a great way of being able to try to cope with certain things.
Yeah. It was pretty funny, because when I was in the operating, I don't know if it was an operating room I was in, whatever room they did the cardiac cath on me, it's like a cath lab. They have a big U-arm X-ray machine that goes over you and when they shoot the dye in, you know, all that stuff. And they have the cameras up there that you can, screens that they record everything on. And I'm in there, you know, my doctor, my cardiologist guy is in there, Dr. Arcement, and he's, and we're close, you know, so I know him, and the anesthesiologist who's he's friends with is in there. He's like, give him whatever he wants, you know. He's like, and the anesthesiologist is like, he's very liberal with his, because they weren't putting me out, they weren't putting a breathing tube, but they were just giving me some feel good medication, and you know, I'm cracking jokes, and it definitely does take the edge off, you know. And the good thing about surgeries are, and I'll tell you, if anyone's, so a lot of people never had a surgery, once they give you the feel good stuff, number one, you could give a crap of what there's no more nerves anymore because you're so high from the drugs that they can be telling you, we're going to cut your head off, and you'll be like, all right, whatever, you know, as long as it doesn't, it's not going to hurt, right? Yeah, you know, all right, go ahead, do it good. And the second thing is you're not going to remember half of what they're doing anyway, because they're like, you know, you're going to be in twilight. We're going to talk to you during. I said, I don't really want you to talk to me while this. They're like, you're not going to remember anyway. Don't worry about it. I said, all right,
right.
So, I mean, so once you get to the operating room and they're actually give you some of that, you know, stuff that makes you feel good, believe me, that's it. The agony is over at that point, because either you're going to wake up or you're not going to wake up at that point, you know. So don't get so worried about it. The actual experience once you're in the operating room is not the worst part. It's the lead up.
Yes.
Thinking about what the heck they're going to be doing to me. Oh my God, I can't believe this, you know? So if you can get through that and talk to people who have gone through it, like I've been talking to a lot of people who've gone through this procedure, multiple, probably like 30 people I've talked to already. And you know, in detail what they've gone, and they've given me their personal accounts of what they went through, what was they found challenging, what they didn't find challenging, what wasn't so bad, what was bad. And you know what? I feel like I kind of know the process. Now, that doesn't mean it's gonna feel great when I wake up from the surgery, but I feel a little more comfortable going into the surgery knowing that. And so I suggest that if anyone goes out, let's say you go out and you have a cardiac CT scan and you come back with plaques, blockages in your coronary arteries, and now you're having a nervous breakdown because you think you're gonna have a heart attack tomorrow. You know what? Reach out to someone who's gone through it.
Exactly.
Rich Gaspari found that out, and he went in and got a stent, and they fixed the problem. You know, I didn't even know this. I don't know if you were aware of this, but my cardiologist, Dr. Arcement, he does these cardiac caths. Now, if he goes into someone's vessels, coronary arteries, and he sees a blockage, you know, they want to put a stent in there. But a lot of times, it's so blocked that they actually have to go and drill a hole. They got to drill out the plaque. Now, they have to drill it so that the particles are so fine that they just kind of dissolve and go off. Because if you take a chunk off, it can go right to your brain and you can die of a stroke. Gotcha. So they drill fine particulate matter until they get a nice opening in the vessel, and then they put the stent in there, which holds open that blockage or that plaque. And they can do this through a thread that they thread through your artery. They're not even doing it. It's not open heart. It's incredible what they can do nowadays. So usually when you go and get cathed, okay, they fix the problem. Nowadays, most people are getting cardiac CT angiograms, you know, where they're visualizing it on a machine, and then they're finding out, I have a blockage. Now we have to do something about it. For most people, the solution is to get a stent, and that usually fixes the problem. So there's always a solution to most problems out there, okay? And I always say that, you know what, I'd much rather go through a heart surgery than have a serious, like, metastasizing cancer in my body, because you know what, that's a we're not sure if we can fix it problem. Whereas the heart is a mechanical problem. It's a plumbing problem, right? At the end of the day, you know, if your drain in your house is leaking, right, what do? They cut out the bad part, they put a new pipe in there, and then they close it off. The only difference is that you know, you don't have to be without water in your house for 14 days, you know. Okay, so it's, you know, a plumbing problem is an easier fix than having something that's going wrong in your body with cells dividing because we don't know why they're dividing. You know? So there's always someone worse off than you are, and that's another thing I think that you can keep in the back of your head. Look, yes, it's terrible what happened to me, but you know what? There's people who have a lot worse things wrong. When I had my ankle fusion and I'm hobbling around the gym on crutches or on my scooter, and then I work in, I've told the story with the guy on the bench who has no leg. I'm like, well, I'm kind of better off than that guy, you know. and he's got a pretty good attitude about life. So that's it. You got to find a way to get through it, and if you can't do it yourself and you don't have people around you, and you're alone, then you got to reach out to people, whether they be friends or professional people like Lesley, or someone like myself who might be going through something that you've gone through and that I might have some insights. Then that's what you do. But don't try to be a hero and get through it on your own. You need help. We all need to have someone pick us up when we're down a little bit.
Absolutely. That's how we stay up. Yeah.
Lesley, how do people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you?
They can send me a message on, let's say, Instagram. So my handle is Lesley T_mental_iron. Just send me a DM and we'll go from there.
All right. Sounds good. And that's, guys, going to take us to the end of another episode. Hopefully not our last. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get another one in before my surgery. Now, I've been making jokes, and like you said, some people deal with like weird stuff like this by making jokes about it, and that's what I do because it kind of diffuses the seriousness of it. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty serious about what's going on.
Oh, for sure.
Happening. I'm not taking this lightly, but you know what? It's good to have humor, and absurdity of life is what makes us get through the hard times sometimes. And thank you all for the support that you've given me, and all the DMs and text messages and emails I've received. I appreciate it. The surgery, like I said, I'll announce when I'm probably going to be the second week in March at some point after the Arnold Classic. I'll find out tomorrow, and I will keep you guys updated on the journey the entire way through, so you guys know what's going on. For now, I'm Dave Palumbo with Lesley Timbol for another episode of Iron Therapy. We'll see you next week.
Take care, guys.